Thank you very much. And welcome to Cats and Dogs here on Press TV with me, Lemmy Topic, where we begin with a look at a country that's had more than its fair share of party time in Parliament. Oh yes, in the UK, people are already struggling to pay their bills and mortgages. This once great nation is even having to cut back on the weekly food shop. Many families are already worried about what this winter and next year will bring. We've even had 4 Tory chancellors in just 4 months because we can't seem to afford the good chancellors anymore, just the disposable ones. But don't worry, things are not all doom and gloom. In the portals of Parliament itself, things look like they're doing absolutely fine. Oh yes, the servants of the people appear to be keeping calm and carrying on. And what a carry-on it is! An investigation published by the Daily Star has revealed that over £265,000 was spent in Parliament's canteens and bars on over 48,000 purchases from April 2021 to the end of March this year. That means over £250,000 has been spent on very reasonably priced booze and food in Parliament in just 1 year. British MPs, parliamentary staff and others have dug deep to do their best to support the creaking economy by downing hundreds of bottles of champagne, thousands of bottles of wine and tens of thousands of bottles of beer and ciders. All this bargain basement boozing arises at a time when many Brits are choosing between heating and eating. Are these the perks of privilege, you ask? And does it expose them to the risk of being offered a poisonous cup of coffee? When he bought that coffee, I just hope he kept the receipt. Who can enlighten us about the ins and outs of insider imbibing in the House of Commons? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome none other than the Speaker of the House of Commons himself, Sir Lindsay Harvey Hoyle MP. Mr. Speaker, welcome to Cats and Dogs.
That's an interesting name for a bar.
What is?
Cats and Dogs.
It's not a bar, it's a television programme.
Oh, that's a bit disappointing.
Well, anyway, Sir Lindsay, over the past year or so, British taxpayers have paid out a lot of money to their MPs, and their MPs seem to have paid out a lot of money on alcohol. Why are MPs so thirsty?
Because they come to work thirsty.
Why do they come to work thirsty?
Have you seen the prices they have to pay before they get to work?
Yeah, but why do politicians spend so much cash in the bars day after day?
Yesterday's drinks do not remove today's thirst.
Could British taxpayers' money be better spent in other ways?
We're in a cost of living crisis. Prices are going up, inflation going up, winter is coming. MPs are under a lot of pressure. Why shouldn't they have a few drinks when they get to work?
It's just that it seems to some people that it's one rule for the general public and another rule for the ruling classes. I mean, a lot of ordinary people are choosing between heating and eating.
So what? Not so long ago, only aristocracy and the royal family had food.
Is that true?
Not really, but the poor certainly didn't hang around Parliament moaning about being cold and hungry all the time.
Why not?
Because we used to send them away in the army. That was the good old days.
OK, so why not invite the public to come and eat in Parliament's restaurants?
No can do, I'm afraid.
Why can't you do that?
Having the riffraff in here would just make MPs even more depressed. I mean, it's bad enough having to go past all those poor people on the way to work. It would ruin everything.
Well, why would it ruin everything?
What's the point of getting elected to Parliament if you can't get away from the public?
Well, you see, some say it's time to raise alcohol prices in Parliament. What do you think?
No way.
Why not?
If it wasn't so cheap to drink here, it would be much harder to get people to be Prime Minister or Chancellor.
Is that any way to run an advanced and progressive country?
No, but we're not talking about an advanced and progressive country. We're talking about Britain.
Any last words for those who can't afford their daily bread?
Well, yes. To quote a great French woman, let them eat cake.
I don't think that ended very well for her, actually. But, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Back in the real world, while the UK is already battling decades-high inflation, the Tory government seems determined to introduce big tax increases and interest rates rises that will stifle business and impoverish millions of people. But hey, let's look on the bright side. And let's look at some possible headlines amid skyrocketing prices. New government research reveals empty plates save money on washing up liquid. Food shortages at last. It's just what Big Belly Britain needed. And as winter approaches, ministers recommend new snow diet. It's low fat, high fluff, and tax-free. In other news that some found equally hard to swallow, across the pond, Donald Trump made the least surprising announcement ever when he launched his White House bid for 2024. Before this totally predictable statement, he'd been busy mounting persistent attacks on the integrity of US voting since his 2020 election defeat. Are you ready for this? Lights, camera, Trump.
In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
Now, throughout the speech, Trump made clear that he wants his campaign to be seen by Republicans as a sacrificial personal undertaking. However, Don's decision does raise what you might call a minor legal question. How can he run for president in 2024 if he won the last election in 2020? Because that would mean he is now already in his second term, and therefore he can't stand again because a third term would be totally unconstitutional. Well, leaving aside that little tiny detail, Trump is clearly back, and so are the fact checkers. Yet it might be admitted he's sharing some rather tricky home truths. Check this out.
But now we are a nation in decline. We are a failing nation. For millions of Americans, the past 2 years under Joe Biden have been a time of pain, hardship, anxiety, and despair. As we speak, inflation is the highest in over 50 years. Gas prices have reached the highest levels in history and expect them to go much higher. Now we have a president who falls asleep at global conferences, was held in contempt by the British Parliament over Afghanistan. Thanks to the words of wisdom, he said thank you to the wrong country for inviting him to a major summit on the environment of all things. They fly for days to get there, and then he calls the country a name that was actually a country on another continent.
Actually, it's quite hard to argue with those points, isn't it? Anyway, Trump's third presidential bid coincides with what happened at the end of his first presidential term, when he was being investigated for his activities before and during the January 2021 attack on the US Capitol and apparently his retention of classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago estate after he left office. We don't know his detailed agenda either for making America great again, this time round, except for one thing. It's going to be a beautiful thing, so beautiful, except for Mike Pence. He's a bad man, very, very bad. That's all for this week. Join me again next time to find out if Trump really is going for it, if Biden remembers he's going for it as well, and if anyone under 70 years old will go for it too. That's all with me, Len Potopic, here on Press TV, and Cats and Dogs.